Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to SiDEBAR Forever. If you like the show, please subscribe to us at sidebarforever.com, as well as share episodes of the podcast on your social media. That way, new listeners can find us as well. On today's podcast, we talk revenge plots, failed kidnappings, con men and grifters, and the seduction of quick and easy money. All right smack in the middle of Anywhere, USA. Rural crime movies are one of our favorite film subgenres. They at once combine small town life with unexpected danger and chaos, and usually a local or two who are in way over their heads. In the conversation, Swain and I discuss such films as Bonnie and Clyde, The Getaway, Blood Simple, At Close Range, A Simple Plan, The Lookout, Hell or High Water, and Wind River. We also name-check a few A-list actors like Frances McDormand and Josh Brolin, who rose to prominence after their appearances in rural crime movies like Fargo and No Country for Old Men, both by the directorial team, Joel and Ethan Coen. What are some of the elements and tropes that set these films apart from other crime movies? And do we learn more about the human condition by telling these tales against the backdrop of the Deep South, the Heartland, and the modern-day American frontier? I'm Major Johnson. Swain and me got a plan, and if we stick to it and don't screw nothing up, we can hightail it out of here. Because today, we're in a whole mess of trouble with a topic we're calling rural crime movies.
I guess the thing that I initially was thinking about was like, why does Hollywood and why does American cinema return to these kind of small town rural crime movies? They don't make them all the time, certainly not in a studio sense now. You know, the big studios are much more concerned with, franchises and, blockbuster films. But, for a time, even if you look at the timeline of the films that we're going to discuss today, they'll do a couple and then it'll skip 5 or 6 or 7 years, and then a couple more will kind of come to the fore, 1 or 2, and then it'll skip 5 or 6 or 7 years. And my thinking is that obviously films like these are simpler to make.
Yep.
They require, unless it's a period piece where, everything has to look a certain way, they're simpler to make because, you don't have to cut off streets per se. You could take over a town or a section of a town. Mm-hmm. You could literally shoot an entire thing, within 2 square blocks, or on a ranch or in a neighborhood or wherever the case may be. And then just, so it seems like it would be budget wise, it would be simpler. But why do you think that we continue to return to these kinds of small town, these thrillers and, this kind of thing?
I really think it's because it's this whole idea of like American values, quote unquote.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just people are always interested in Americana. They're always saying, we need to return to like this small town values and whatnot. But beneath that, and I think in modern society, there's a lot of that undercurrent of, well, what's beneath these placid waters of, everything's okay, everything's cool. Right. No, it's not cool. It's some other stuff going on. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You see it every day in the news or whatnot. But as far as like movies themselves, I think it's because, one, like you mentioned, they're economically, cheap to make, relatively. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You can take over a town. Like you said, you'll see behind the scenes of certain movies where it's like, okay, like A Time to Kill. Mm-hmm. They took over that town, wherever that was. Yeah. They shot the movie, boom. It was done. But you don't see that a lot nowadays because they do a lot of that in studio. And this is even pre-COVID and everything. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But I think just the studios, when you have an actor who's hot, you know what I'm saying? They'll do like big movies, and then the actor will be like, I just kind of want to do a smaller something. Right. Like a character piece. Right. Okay, well, give him or her a character piece. You know what I'm saying? And you'll find that it's like that one for them, one for me type thing.
Yeah.
And that one for me type thing is usually something small.
More
it's not
personal.
Going to cost a lot.
Yeah.
So that way the studio will be like, okay, we can give you about 8 or 10 million to do something with that. Okay.
Right.
Because you've earned 100 million for us.
Now, that's, like you said, that's pre-COVID, but that's also pre-Marvel blockbusters, tentpole movies. Now the big studios, according to, everything that we read and hear, they don't want to spend $10 or $20 million. They don't want to spend $50 million on what would be considered a smaller movie. It's like if we're not spending $100 to $200 million, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
The return would be so small, even though you might spend $20 million on it and make 80, which is a hit.
Right.
That ain't no money now by those standards. And so a lot of those kinds of films we're starting to see go straight to streaming platforms. We're seeing Netflix and other smaller studios make those movies, and they end up on Hulu, Netflix, and places like that. An example would be that movie I was telling you about, I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I believe it's on Netflix, and it's, if they spent $20 million on it, I'd be surprised. But, Elijah Wood's in it, and Melanie Linsky is in it.
Okay.
And I think it was all shot in Portland, so it was actually on the honorable mention list for our conversation today, because it's technically suburban and not rural per se. But it was very much like an Anywhere USA kind of a movie. Like you weren't completely aware that it was Portland or California or, North Dakota or whatever. It was just a neighborhood or whatever. But yeah, I think you're right about that. But yeah, now the focus is on the bigger budgeted films. And so, I don't know, would they make A Simple Plan today? Would they make At Close Range or something like that today?
No. And in fact, At Close Range, which was awesome, by the way, great recommendation.
I'm glad you liked it.
That was awesome. I'd done some reading up on it, afterwards. And, apparently this was like a passion project for Sean Penn. Mm-hmm. This was something I guess he had pitch that was like, hey, I really want to do this story, you know what I'm saying? And it shows in the final product, because the movie was great. But again, it's because he was beginning to be a proven commodity. Like he was very busy during the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
When you look back at his filmography then, you have like Bad Boys in 83. Well, before that, obviously, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But after,
and
Bad
Taps.
Boys.
He was in Taps, wasn't he?
He was. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he was a hot young actor. And I think the studios there was like, he's doing pretty good business for us. Yeah, sure. Why not? And the movie itself, and it's not a detriment to it, but it doesn't look like they spent a lot on it. You know what I'm saying? It looks, they spent just enough to get the authenticity to what they were shooting, to the story, and they took over a town, I would imagine, because they have the town square there, the, outskirts and everything, but as far as would they make something like that today, it would have to be like a big ass actor saying, I want to do this, like a Leonardo DiCaprio or somebody, and saying, no, I want to do this. If I do this, you're going to make some of your money back. You're going to make at least your money back.
So to that point, we have examples of them in recent years. We're talking about Hell or High Water. We were talking about Wind River. And then that recent movie that Angelina Jolie is in, Those Who Wish Me Dead, which is on Netflix. It went straight to Netflix. I think it might have been made for Netflix, maybe. But all of those are written by Taylor Sheridan, who was born in West Texas, lives in Wyoming. He's very preoccupied by the modern American frontier, and in movies about these kinds of broken, disillusioned places. But like even Those Who Wish Me Dead, it's not a studio film. It's not in theaters or whatever. And to be honest, it feels like a throwback.
How so?
Well, just because you just haven't seen it. We just don't see films like that. Even Wind River, which I guess came out in 2017.
Yeah.
It was 4 or 5 years ago. And that's another one. That was the first movie he wrote and directed. But I mean, it's got Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen in it. It's got 2 Avengers in it.
Yeah.
At the height of their powers or whatever. But to go back to your point earlier about Sean Penn, and then we can actually get to, describing what we're going to talk about as far as real crime movies go. The other thing about Penn at that time that was big was he was married to Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
They were recently married, so he was in the press punching reporters and paparazzi out every other week.
Right.
So, that was another thing. He was popular, but he was also or famous, but he was also becoming infamous at the same time.
Yeah.
So you could get a lot of press on Sean Penn, whether the movie was good or bad. And,
And you know what's funny about that movie, man? Obviously Madonna sang the ending song,
right.
And when her credit came up, it was like, written by so-and-so and sung by Madonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you had his brother Chris in it. And the woman who played their grandma was actually their mom.
Whose mom?
Their mom, Chris and
Sean Penn's?
Yeah. So the woman that played grandma.
Oh my God, I didn't know that, yo. That's some hella trivia, yo.
Yeah, and I didn't catch it until I read up on it. Chris Penn trips up in the scene where they're playing Monopoly, at the house, and he says, "No, Mom, you can't do that." But he's talking to
the
grandma.
Character who's supposed to be his grandma.
Yeah, but he's like, "Mom, no, you got to take Park Avenue." It's like, oh shit! So I had to rewind. I was like, he sure did. He called her mom.
That's hilarious.
That's crazy. Yeah,
that is hilarious. But well, go ahead, man, and set us off as far as this particular subgenre and how much we love it and what it is and where it started.
Yeah, man. When you suggested this as a topic, I had to think about it because I was like, okay, let's sit back and think about this. And the more I thought about it, and the more you and I dialogued on it, it really became prevalent that this is kind of a genre of movies. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? A genre within a subgenre. Crime movies, but crime movies that take place in rural country settings, so to speak, And, I was thinking back to like kind of the origins of like, these rural crime movies. And you can definitely go back to like, I'd say like the 30s, some of those Warner Brothers movies, like Petrified Forest, Humphrey Bogart, takes place in this rural cafe. He's holding these patrons hostage or whatnot, But you also have at the same time in real life, these gangsters terrorizing the Midwest. Well, not gangsters, more like bank robbers and criminals on these crime sprees, like Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, Machine Gun Kelly.
Babyface
Nelson. Exactly, yeah. Just doing mad shit, throughout the Midwest and, being subsequently vilified for it, but they were kind of like folk heroes.
Like Robin Hood.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the banks and all the, there was no middle class. Mm-hmm. It was either you had money or you didn't have money, and so, they were kind of like seen as robbing from the rich, not to give to the poor, but just fucking sticking it to the man, basically.
Exactly. So you had movies around that time that either, would, have characters that were similar to them. They wouldn't necessarily have them by name in the movie, but it would be characters that are similar to the events that happen.
Right.
Like those movies would come later on. But, so you jump ahead to like the late 60s, okay? And while we're talking about Bonnie and Clyde, you do have in 1967 the movie Bonnie and Clyde,
right?
Comes out. Obviously, Warren Beatty, Faye Dunaway, and it's a thing of when you watch it, it's obvious that they're trying to portray them as star-crossed lovers on one degree.
Right.
They're young people, youths who feel like the only way to get out of this town or to get out of these circumstances is, hey, let's kick the dust off our shoes and go rob some banks, man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it starts small. He robs a hardware store, comes back, shows, Bonnie, Faye Dunaway, hey, I got some money. And she's attracted by it. She's like, it was that easy. That's all you had to do. You went in and showed him a gun. Yeah. Let's hit the road, babe. And they do it, right?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
But it always ends bad. So, so obviously everyone knows, if you know anything about Hollywood lore and, just films, the way Bonnie and Clyde ends, and it's probably the first time, to my knowledge, and I'm sure if anyone knows otherwise, you'll correct us in the comment section, that this is the first time where we see like graphic violence, like, entrance wounds, when they got shot at the end, when they were ambushed by the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think it set a standard. Now, mind you, this is 2 years before The Wild Bunch.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So Hollywood hadn't seen, this type of violence portrayed on screen. Mm-hmm. So at once it was like, okay, we have this crime movie, but it's also one part Romeo and Juliet in some way.
Yeah.
But it's also, it was also very violent. Aside from that particular scene, you have another scene where Gene Hackman gets shot in the face.
Yeah.
And again, you hadn't seen that.
That's the one that even though I'd seen many, many violent movies prior to seeing Bonnie and Clyde, that's the one where I was just like, oh
shit. Yeah.
It really kind of rocked me, and that was one of Gene's, I think, first acting roles, in a feature film.
Yeah.
But that was the one where I was like, wow, and also the one that really said, yeah, this is not going to end well for anybody associated with these two people, let alone, the titular characters in the film.
Exactly, because before this, anytime you've seen like those type of crime movies, when someone is shot, it's clutch your stomach and ooh,
fall over.
Exactly, keel over,
pass out.
Exactly. But now it's like no, they're getting their comeuppance. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And they've been portrayed as characters, so when this happens, it's very tragic. It's almost like, oh man, why they had to go out? Why they had to go out like that? Because they robbed fucking banks. That's why, and they killed people.
Yeah, and very much a precursor to the anti-heroes of, like the Sopranos era or gangster movies, where you're kind of rooting for Henry Hill and Goodfellas, and you're kind of rooting for Tony Soprano, even though they're murderous, ruthless, degenerate scumbags. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? You spend so much time with them, you kind of are on their side in a way, as a viewer.
Exactly. And also in the late 60s, there's kind of a split. So you have rural crime movies that kind of go in two directions. You have the one where it's like, criminals doing their thing in these rural settings, but you also have this whole thing of like, spree crimes. So you have In Cold Blood also in 1967, if I'm not mistaken. Directed by Richard Brooks, stars Robert Blake, and it's a true life story, about these two youths. It's always youths, They just go on a killing spree, crime spree. I mean, they murder their way, steal their way across states before they're caught. I think, I'm trying to remember how the movie ended, but they were eventually caught or something happened and put in the jail. But yeah, people were just shocked because these are youths. You know what I'm saying? These are young people, young men. But you also have, along those lines, in 73, Badlands, directed by Terrence Malick, stars Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek. So now you have those star-crossed lovers like you had in Bonnie and Clyde, but now they're spree killers. Just like, like
Mickey,
Cold Blood.
Mickey and Mallory too. It was a precursor to Mickey and Mallory in Natural Born Killers.
Yeah. Exactly. Which is one that should be added on to that as well in the conversation. But yeah, so even with that, you see like 20 years after that, the strains of how the genre parts, are starting to become prevalent, and it's still prevalent.
I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks. He wore black and I wore white. He would always win the fight. Bang, bang, he shot me down. Bang, bang, I hit the ground. Bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, my baby shot me down.
Also, I did want to make mention of, you also have, there's a third strain of those rural crime movies. You also have the somewhat comedic, lighthearted strain as well. Like, it's 74. You got Thunder, I think it's Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about that one, I hadn't even thought about that.
Clint Eastwood, Jeff Bridges, and it was Michael Cimino, who we know as Mr. Deer Hunter, Mr. Heaven's Gate, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Same thing, like very light. Well, I won't say very lighthearted because it ended kind of rough. Jeff Bridges, he didn't go out too well. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you also have in 74, you have Steven Spielberg, his first big screen feature, believe it or not, Sugarland Express with Goldie Hawn.
Okay.
Yeah, that took place in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was like, the studio was like, oh, we'll give this little upstart. He made that movie do that little TV thing. All right, go ahead. Here's some money. Go ahead.
Right.
And he came back and it was a moderate hit for him. And things were just already in place, too. It was like, you got Steven Spielberg And then John Williams did the musical score for it. So he's already like, I'm putting pieces in place, guys. Just rock with me.
Look, I'm building my beautiful mind thing. You know? I'm seeing the numbers. It's all coming together.
Exactly. So you just have those three strains that kind of, become, rural crime movies, as we start to know them. And then, it starts to fork off, through the decades as well into other things as well. Yeah. But yeah, to me, and this is conjecture, so, if anyone out there has any other views, yeah, definitely chime up. But I think those are the beginnings of the genre.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think certainly throughout all of these, there is an air of the lawless Old West and even in Westerns, there was this mysterious stranger who comes to town. We don't know if this person's a good person or a bad person, the local personalities, even as part of kind of the key elements that we see kind of recur over and over again in rural crime movies. I wanted to talk a little bit about just real quickly, The Getaway in 72 with Steve McQueen and
Ally McGraw.
Ally McGraw.
Yes, sir.
I saw the remake first.
Boo! Go ahead.
I was waiting on your hate, son. I was waiting on it. Your negative energy. But I really, and then I saw, the original later on. Yeah. And they're very similar. They're very, very similar. But even that one, as now it's not really just lawlessness, and it's not a crime spree per se, and it's not even like, just killers on the run. This is professional thief. But just working in small town situations, robbing, like racetracks and things of that nature. Yeah. And the thing about the remake was in seeing it, I was just like, well, what I didn't like was, I was like, okay, Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger are just so attractive.
Right, exactly.
Just like, they look like models. What the hell are you doing here? But the thing I did like is Kim Basinger is actually a Southerner. So setting it in a rural place or in a place that's outside of a big city, she could be authentic.
Yeah, it sounds,
and kind of bring that to mind. But I wanted to jump ahead because you said you were a fan of Blood Simple, right, in 84?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I tried watching it twice recently, and I just couldn't stay with it.
Oh, man.
I couldn't stay with it. I could see, like, just little kind of, like, light touches and maybe implications of what the Coens would become. But it just seemed so novice filmmaker and, like, a little wandery in places. Even though I loved seeing Frances McDormand and Dan Hedaya. And
I forgot what the I know who you're thinking about. What's the younger guy?
Yeah,
I forget who that is.
The main actor who was having the affair with Frances McDormand's character. Yeah, but I liked seeing them, but I couldn't finish it, yo. But what is it that you recall about that particular movie, and how does it play into kind of the rural crime genre? Because that's 20 years past Bonnie and Clyde. In 10 years past, like The Getaway or something like that.
You know what it reminded me of? It kind of reminded me of, there's a part of it that's kind of like Body Heat. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing of like, now we're having adultery enter into it. And I think a lot of these movies work when it's something that the audience can relate to. Now, I'm not saying everybody's being cheated on and all that stuff, but in your mind, you're like, if that happened to me, what would be my reaction? No, I'm not going to kill nobody, but I'll watch somebody on screen do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and do it vicariously.
Exactly. So I think for me, because I saw it first in my early 20s, and I was enamored by it. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, you talk about that novice filmmaking. I think because I can sense that at the time these guys were doing it, the Coens, that they were very young themselves. So it attracted me because I was also a young person, very interested in film. And I had pretensions of being a director. Pretensions.
Okay. I didn't know about that, yeah.
But, yeah, and there's one camera move that they did. I love the movie as a whole, but there's one that, to this day, I still don't know how they did it. Frances McDormand, it's daytime, and she's in her room or whatnot, and somehow she falls back into her bed, and it turns to night. And she falls back into her bed, and everything changes.
Shifts, yeah.
And I was like, that right there that exploded my little 21-year-old mind. Like, boom.
Right.
What?
Right.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
But the rest of the movie itself was just very good to me. You know what I'm saying? And I think it works its way into this whole genre is that, one, it does take place in a small town in Texas. Two, there's a familiarity there. You know, they set up the characters to, you might actually know these people, you know, or archetypes of these people. You know, the attractive girl who probably was, you know, very attractive in high school, and she ended up marrying an older man for security. You know what I'm saying? He owns a local business or whatnot, but he's up in some shit. You know what I'm saying? He's doing some stuff. You know, it's like you kind of know these people. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's almost like a bird in a gilded cage, you know? And this other dude that comes along, she's like, oh my goodness. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Obviously someone who's more appropriate to her. There's a natural attraction, and the inevitable end of her relationship with the older, more richer, powerful man is soon bearing down. It's like, okay, this is...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, you still have that whole strain of, you know, star-crossed lovers, if you will, because, you know, she's like, you know, well, I don't want to be with him anymore. I want to be with you, but how can we make that happen? And so that younger guy is pressured into, oh, I got to make this happen. I mean, she kind of fine.
She got that thing.
Yeah, you know, she put it on me. So I'm sprung. My nose wide open.
Right. So
I got to figure something out. Yeah. And he does. And then, you know, the situations ensue and everything. But yeah, I think it just really works on that basic level. And then obviously the Coens become, you know, master filmmakers, you know, after this, of course. Yeah. And they continue that strain of rural crime movies, obviously with Fargo and No Country for Old Men, you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like they too, you know, like you were talking about the writer-director earlier who did Wind River. It seems like they too have a fascination with that Midwestern, you know, kind of, there's still a frontier out there. It's just in a modern sense. Yeah.
Parts of America that have maybe been ignored, left behind, technologically, socially, whatever the case may be. Even in a movie like we were talking about, Hell or High Water. Did you get a chance to see it?
Man, I didn't.
Okay. In that particular movie, there's talk where they say, you know, this town used to be a real town, and now it's, you know, it's got a pawn shop, a gun shop, it's got a diner that sells, you know, basically three meals, and that's it. Those are the only things on the menu. And everybody either works at the mill or whatever, and the nearest Walmart, you know, is 20 miles away in East Texas somewhere. You know? So, you know, this place is a shell, you know, and there's a bank, which, you know, Chris Pine and Ben Foster, you know, aptly want to rob. You know, they want to get paid. But let's pause for a second and talk a little bit about some of the key elements.
All right.
In crime movies. I made a list because I was trying to think about it. I was like, what seems to be recurring over and over again? Certainly small town, sleepy, you know, comfortable community, distinct local personalities who have been there forever. You know, that seems to be something that comes up a lot. As far as the plot goes, and you were talking before about, you know, being isolated, that's a motivation for, you know, Breaking Bad and, you know, trying to come up. The thing I noticed is like sometimes, and usually there's a change agent that comes in. Either a stranger comes with a mysterious past and they kind of bring trouble, or a law enforcement person from a bigger place or another place comes and, you know, they're trying to solve a crime or something like that. We see that happen. Definitely a plan of some kind that goes awry. You know, is we got it laid out, and then something happens, and somebody dies or somebody gets killed.
And it's so funny, like within the group, you always know who's gonna be the one that's gonna fuck up the plan. Like you can pick them out. And it's like, Clem, don't fuck this up. I ain't gonna do shit. You know I ain't gonna do shit. Look, and that's the one who does it.
The thing I always liked was in the Getaway remake, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it. But he's got like a long mullet, and he's playing like the young buck who's brought into the crew, who doesn't have the experience and doesn't, you know everybody like everyone else does. And Alec Baldwin is a little bit suspicious of him. He says, "So what's your name?" His name's Ricky. I drive real good, shoot real good. You drive real good, you shoot real good. And you knew he was going to be the first one in the double cross who was going to get shot. And of course, Michael Madsen's character like shoots him into the car as they're driving away and kicks him out on the side of the road. And one of the as far as other elements go, bored and disfranchised members of the community, which you kind of touched on earlier. Somebody trying to right a wrong of some kind.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Deep family secrets. Family resentment and jealousy, that kind of thing. You never loved me, or mom and dad loved you better than me. We saw that in A Simple Plan, between Billy Bob Thornton's character and Bill Paxton's character. Yeah. They paid for you to go to college. I didn't get anything. Or there's just a murder, and then it's got to be investigated, and somebody's got to figure it out. Somebody's got to solve it or make it resolute by the end of the film. But as far as the 80s go, Blood Simple was 1984.
Yeah.
And Witness came out in 1985.
Yes.
And in 88, when we talked about this and you laughed, I brought up Shoot to Kill. Why is that funny, yo? Look at this. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Put some respect on Shoot to Kill. We got Sidney Poitier.
Okay.
Tom Berenger.
Yeah.
And Clancy Brown.
Shoot to Kill.
And an early Kirstie Alley.
Yeah.
As one of the trackers, yo.
You might have said something like Next to Kid or some shit.
Hey, I like Next to Kid too,
me
yo.
too.
I fuck with Next to Kid hard, yo.
You ain't mountain. You ain't mountain no.
You ain't mountain no more. You ain't mountain. That shit was hard, yo. Liam Neeson did that, yo. But the thing I was going to point out about Witness and Shoot to Kill is these are examples where in Witness, the crime takes place in the city, presumably in Philly, and then they end up going out into the outskirts and into the rural areas of, quote, Amish country, and then that's actually where the movie ends.
Yeah.
And so our hero, our main protagonist, Harrison Ford's character as the cop, kind of discovers himself, separating himself from his city environment, and he has that bond with the
boy, right?
with the boy, but also with his mother,
Kelly McGillis.
Kelly McGillis, yeah, from Top Gun, and in this, I think she did this right before Top Gun.
That's right.
And an early Danny Glover appearance as the villain, who dies in the silo. Yeah, yo.
Great mister.
Yeah. Remember the little boy was in the police station, he's wandering around, and he goes to the trophy case, and he says,
wait a minute.
Him. He says, the killer, he looked like him? He said, no, that is him. And then that's when the movie takes off.
Yeah.
But it starts in the city and then comes out into the rural, and it's the opposite, or it's a back and forth with Shoot to Kill. Mm-hmm. It starts in the city. We go out into the mountains and into the woods and in the rural areas, and then we end up back in the city, for the third act and for the the big climax where they finally catch Clancy Brown, who was rocking the voice.
Oh yeah.
In that movie, like that was his whole thing. You couldn't see his face, so he commits the crime and kills a cop or somebody, I forget. He gets away. They don't know what he looks like. And then he joins this kind of caravan of dudes who are going, like middle-aged, wealthy dudes who are going on this, this hike retreat or whatever. Mm. And you don't know which one of them is actually the criminal that Sidney Poitier is trying to capture. But one of the things I want to bring up, and it's kind of a trope, but I'll go ahead and touch upon it now.
All right.
One of my favorite tropes is the person who is a tracker and who knows the area and the terrain or the whatever, and they're forced to track somebody against their will. Somebody, either the law enforcement person makes them do it, or the criminals are like, "Hey, you got to show us how to get out of here." And they're gonna figure out all kinds, because they know this area very, very well intimately. So they're gonna figure out a way to try to ditch the person who's making them do it. But I always love it when they make them do it. You're gonna show us who the fuck I am. And of course, it ends up happening that way. That happens in Shoot to Kill. Tom Berenger's the tracker. The same thing happens in Cliffhanger with Sly Stallone.
You're right. Yeah.
Where
John
Lithgow's character and his crew, including Leon. Is that your bitch?
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, bitch. Oh, God. He was so horrible in that movie. But it happens in that movie and in Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Okay.
Where John Barenthal plays like a local cop who knows the area, whatever, and the criminals who are trying to hunt down this little boy who has the information.
Yeah.
They're like, we got to find him. You got to, show us where to go. And at first, Barenthal kind of gives in and he starts trying to help him, but then he like hides one, like a footprint or whatever, and they're like, whatever. And then finally he's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not helping you. But it's, I love that as kind of a trope that kind of comes up. It's like, the change agent comes in, trouble comes to town, but they've got to enlist somebody to help them because they don't know anything about this place. Mm-hmm. They're totally unfamiliar with it. So
and that's funny because that is a definite trope. You know what I'm saying? And I think we as the audience identify with that because we would be like, well, if I was under duress like that, how would I get out of this situation?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And plus, it also plays into the fact of like it's a such thing as like country smarts.
Yes.
There's street smarts,
right.
There's country smarts.
Yeah.
Okay, when you come in from the city, and you asking for directions or how to do this and that, none of that city stuff gonna help you.
Yeah.
These country people gonna know what to do. Don't
Right.
go to that lake because the current is too strong.
Right.
Don't go in them woods because you won't find your way out.
Right.
That type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hella dark over there in Wilson's woods over by the farm. Mm-hmm. If he goes over there, he never gonna find his way out.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even in Shoot to Kill, Poitier tells him after almost freezing his balls off in and them trying to cross this mountain with him and Tom Berenger. When they finally get to wherever they were, Canada or wherever, he says, "All right, now you're in my jungle. Now you're where I know how to play."
They call me Mr.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Quick aside, I actually met Sidney Poitier when I was working at Hertz at the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport.
Yeah.
He came in with his family to rent a car, and I actually waited on him and rented the car and acted like I didn't know who he was.
Right.
I didn't want to be saying a bunch of stuff to him. And I was like, name, please? He was like, Poitier.
I know it took all your strangers like, oh my God.
Is this Mr. Tibbs?
We don't speak of it anymore. Oh, man.
But then after Shoot to Kill in 88, or before that, you actually do have At Close Range.
So good.
Which was really one of my favorites.
It's good. Yeah.
Bad Boys, like you said, is a favorite, and we're probably going to have a conversation about prison movies at some point.
Yeah.
But At Close Range is one of my favorites. State of Grace, which is set in New York City, is one later on. That one's another great one. But this one, Christopher Walken, his brother Chris Penn.
Yeah.
We have a very young 86. When did Back to the Future come out?
85.
85. So at the same time is when
Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover is cast in this particular movie.
Who plays Crispin Glover in this movie? He's playing Crispin Glover.
In every movie. He's Crispin Glover in every movie practically.
Oh, okay, I'll go along with that.
All right, Sean Penn. Okay. But Christopher Walken and a bunch of other character actors, including a mute, David Strathairn.
It is. But I also saw reading up on it, you remember when Christopher Walken goes into the cockfight?
Yeah.
And he's talking to some informant who's in the shadow in the foreground.
Right.
He's always wearing sunglasses and whatnot. That was also David Strathairn.
Was it?
That's why they put him in shadow, because like we need an informant right here. We don't have an actor right now. Okay, David, go ahead.
Are you serious?
It's somebody.
So is that why his character is mute throughout the rest of the movie?
I believe so, because otherwise you would have been like, wait a minute, that's him.
Because look, the funny part in the film is Christopher Walken introduces him like 3 times and says, this is Ken over here. He's got epilepsy.
He's just looking at this.
Like, is that my only character trait? I have epilepsy? Okay, motherfucker.
But what I love about At Close Range, though, is it's like, the authenticity of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It really legitimately, if you've ever been to a small town like that, that's exactly how it feels.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Sean Penn is so good in that. Christopher Walken is a fucking monster in
Killer.
it. He is so good, but he is a monster. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And who's the young actor who played Terry? It's Mary Louise.
I thought it was Mary Stuart Masterson.
Mary Stuart Matheson. I think you're right, Mary Stuart Matheson. I get the 3 named Marys. Yeah. Mary Louise Parker or Mary, and then it's like Mary Elizabeth Winstead is out now,
and then Mary Mastranio or something like that.
Yeah. This is like all these 3 Mary names. It's like, okay, wow, this is like a thing. should start a band. But
Yeah.
but yeah, he was absolutely just cunning and ruthless.
And he had this dark charisma about him. And that's how it always is.
Yes.
It's no wonder that he was the leader of this band of guys or whatnot. They all looked to him like Brad Sr. You know, what we going to do next, Brad?
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling you what we're going to do next. You know, whatnot.
Yeah.
You know? And the way he kind of rooted out everything, too, and ruthlessly took care of it once he saw that the FBI is in town.
Right.
Once he got the information that they know about you guys.
Yeah.
They know about the kitty crew. They know about your kitty gang.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And how he just led them up there one by one.
Yeah. Like lambs to the slaughter,
Exactly. Man. You know, and the thing that was heartbreaking, too, is like when he led Chris Penn up there, he's talking to him. Yeah, just stay right here. Stay right here.
And he tells him that story about the coyotes.
Ever been out west, Tommy? No. Never heard of coyote? No. They make this sound like woo, woo, woo. Coyote bitch gets in heat. First thing she does, she took care of the males. Then she head toward town. All the neighborhood dogs, they smell her. They go crazy. They follow her. She lures them out onto the desert. She get a dog out there, alone. All other coyotes come along. They circle around. They kill that dog. Eat it. Tommy, if you was to go up in front of that grand jury, what would you say?
Nothing.
Dad. Liar!
And he's telling her story, and then it's like, what are you going to tell the grand jury when they ask you? I'm not going to say nothing. Liar!
Dad! And he just screams out, Dad!
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
Dad! Bam!
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's why at the end, and actually I think the way I saw that movie, I saw it on cable, and then I went and got the VHS later.
Okay.
But I saw it on cable, and I think I saw the end scene where he and Terry are in the car, and he's been released from jail, and he was working with the authorities, and they were going to be on the run, and his mother and his grandmother gave him a little bit of money, and they were going to try to get their own place and try to just get out of there. And they get in the car, and they're talking, and all of a sudden you see the shadowy figure come to the side of the door, and they just light him up. Pow, 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 pow.
Reminiscent of Bonnie and Clyde with the bullet hits, the squibs. You know, just graphically you can see the squibs and everything.
Yeah, yeah. And then him, you know, he gets out, and he knows she's dead, and he kind of, you know,
washes himself
off, and then shows up at his father's doorstep, and his father's like literally seeing a ghost because he thought he had killed, you know, his boys had killed him. Mm-hmm. And he lets him in, and then he goes to the bathroom and gets the gun that he knows is hidden in the thing, and he comes out, and then that's when they had that confrontation. He says, "Is this the gun you used on so and so, on my brother Tommy, on Terry, on me?" You know, and then you hear the police sirens coming, and that final sequence in there, and all this takes place in remote Pennsylvania, and it's based on a true story. I forgot the family's name, but there was a senior and a junior, and the junior ends up the father he's basically robbing you know, farms and stealing equipment and stealing money, whatever he can. And the son ends up testifying against him after an attempt on his life, and it ends up killing the son's girlfriend, whose real name was Robin Miller, I believe.
Okay.
But it was based on a true story. And then that final scene when, you know, Sean Penn, you know, they bring Christopher Walken and his second in to face trial, and everybody's outside and the reporters, and it's a big deal. And then the helicopter lands, and they bring Sean Penn out, and he's got the jacket over his head. And then he's on the stand, and I never knew why he had that crazy wig on. I wasn't sure about it.
I was like, this ain't Bad Boys, you know.
Right.
What I'm saying?
I was like, what's with the wig? And then, you know, he's on the stand, and they're like, okay, do you see Brad Whitewood Sr. in the court? He's, yeah. And he's like, well, who is he? And, you know, choked up. He's my father. And then, I was just like, oh my God. It was really great. One One of the things about that song, because Madonna, the reason why Madonna gets top billing, and Patrick Leonard is the guy who composed the music and did the score for the movie.
Okay.
He was a collaborator of hers in that period. And so she was married to Penn, and she said, hey, he's got this instrumental thing. I'd like to write lyrics for it and see if we can do it. So she was very much instrumental in getting Patrick Leonard that gig. Mm-hmm. But that song, Live to Tell, it's a great song. It's one of her first songs where she kind of moves out of like the sexy pop arena and starts writing about seemingly more serious matters.
Yeah.
And, I have rarely, I don't think I've ever met a woman or girl, when I was younger, who didn't love that song, who didn't like that song. Again, because it's a great song. But now I realize to some extent, that's a song that speaks to, you hear the percentage that, probably 7 or 8 out of every 10 women you meet have been sexually assaulted on some level.
Yeah.
So this idea of, I have a tale to tell, I have a secret, I hope I live to be able to tell it, a man can tell 1,000 lies, this kind of a thing. And so it had a double meaning to me later on when I, got a little older and got more mature as to why maybe so many women really loved that song and maybe connected with it in an emotional way. Perhaps the intention, perhaps not the intention. Maybe that's conjecture on my part. But it really hit me, later on in life thinking, this idea of, a secret that, I can't tell anybody. And, and even in the film, the actor who played his girlfriend, Terry,
yes.
she's raped by Brad Sr. in that hotel. And, she's talking to her mother, but she never tells Brad Jr., Sean Penn's character, what's happened to her. So anyway. Let's move ahead, man, and talk a little bit about going into the 90s with like Cape Fear, which was set. Is Essex an actual place?
I don't think so.
Okay, this is just because it didn't even seem like a real place, like a real southern town. It all seemed like sets and studio and
exactly,
and manufactured. And I rewatched part of Cape Fear. The remake. I've seen the original with Robert Mitchum and Gregory Peck in 1962.
Yeah.
But the one in '91 with Nick Nolte and
Robert De Niro
and Jessica Lange and a great performance by Juliette Lewis. I love Juliette Lewis's performance in this as the teenage daughter. But the thing I didn't like about the movie, and I saw it in theaters.
Oh man, okay, all right.
That night vision shit when they're having sex and he would go to it. I hated that. It seems so gimmicky and ridiculous to me. We're just, and I'm like...
Again, that's Martin Scorsese getting out of his comfort zone. Like, bruh, you can't do everything. You can't.
Nope. Nope. But you talk about, and if anyone who hasn't seen the 1962 version, Robert Mitchum is menacing as fuck.
He has, between that and Night of the Hunter, he has that menacing,
like, be afraid. But, and that was kind of the other thing, too, is as good as De Niro is in that role, I just didn't believe him as a Southerner.
Mm-hmm. That accent was not working. Yeah.
I didn't believe him as a Southerner. Oddly enough, this is going to sound crazy.
Okay, all right.
I didn't believe him as a Southerner, but I kind of believed him as white trash, if that makes any sense. Because they're not the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're not the same thing. But I did believe him as like a psychopath rapist. Mm-hmm. That I did believe.
Yeah.
And that rape scene with I forgot the actress's name. She was dating Martin Scorsese at the time. Oh my goodness.
Ileana Douglas.
Ileana Douglas.
Yeah.
That rape scene with Ileana Douglas was, it turned my stomach. It was,
as it should. Yeah.
It was so horrible.
Yeah.
But I remember kind of at the, you know, I got what he was going for, but that falls to me a little outside of rural crime.
Yeah.
It took place in supposedly a rural environment, but it was really more of like a psychological stalker kind of a thing than anything else. He wasn't there to commit crime other than, I'm going to pay you back for burying the evidence in my rape case and in me spending the last 14 years in prison. I lost £1 pound for every year I was locked away. Counselor. You know, and him in that scene that was menacing to me more than anything else. In the movie theater, it's like, God damn.
Because you don't want to turn around and tell him to shut up because you talking to me? You want me to shut up?
Right.
Nah, never mind.
Right.
Right.
But let's talk about Fargo, man.
Oh man.
Which is where I discovered the Coen brothers. Really. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Raising Arizona. It wasn't Blood Simple. It was Fargo in 1996.
Yeah.
Frances McDormand, William H. Macy, Steve Buscemi, and a bunch of other great character actors in the movie. When I saw that, and that was another one we saw in theaters. I think Chris and I saw that. Been married maybe a few years. We saw it in theater.
Yeah.
And I remember just being blown away by it. You know, coming from the Midwest, from Chicago, there's a little bit of that there, but that's really more of like a Twin Cities, you know, North Dakota, you know, that part, Brainerd and all that, all the places where this film references and where it takes place.
Yeah.
But the accent and the Minnesota nice and all of it, and, you know, Margie Gunderson and just all of it, man, was just so perfect. And just the idea that crazy, goofy, weird things would happen and that the story would just be dark.
Turn dark.
But never dark like scary dark like, Jesus Christ, what? He put him in a wood chipper?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, he attacked him with an axe? Jesus Christ, he shot the father who was trying to deliver the money, and then the father shot him in the face, and, you know, you motherfucker. You know, Steve Buscemi's character. They killed the woman that they were hired to kidnap, like, as, you know, like, don't hurt her, just kidnap her. We get the ransom money, which is, you know, $1 million or whatever. And then, I mean, it was just, things just fell apart. And then the money is left buried in the snow, you know, at some fence post on mile marker, whatever the hell. It was just crazy, but it was a great film. I was totally engrossed. I did have one crit, but I was totally engrossed. When did you see Fargo, man?
I saw it. I had a similar experience to you in that was also my introduction to the Coen brothers. You know? But that movie, because remember, I think the next year at the Academy Awards, man, I don't know how many it won, but it was a big critical success, you know, and everything, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's when I was like, because I remember my dad rented it, but I think I went and picked it up on my own, you know, as well. And so I was like 17 or 18, and even then at that point, it hit me. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, this is so good, man. Yeah. This is very, very good. Yeah. And it's going to sound funny, but that's also where I kind of developed like a small crush on Frances McDormand, man. Mm-hmm. You know, like she's like she wasn't every woman, but she was so capable in that. She did such a great performance in that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That I was like, man, she's just excellent. Just excellent in that.
Yeah. Frances McDormand won Best Actress, and the Coens won for Best Original Screenplay.
Okay.
At the Oscars in 1987 or 1997, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they definitely got their flowers.
Yeah, they sure did, man. You know, and just also too, it's also one part of like, you know, it has some of the tropes that we've ascribed to other rural movies as well. It's like that family aspect, you know. Like, you know, the father-in-law who really does not like his son-in-law, you know. Exactly.
Where's my genie?
Yeah, man.
No, this is $1 million here. I want in on this deal. No. Come on. Now, this is my deal. This is my deal here.
Gosh darn it, come on. You know what I'm saying? And just the whole family drama of that, you know, his home life, you know, the son is just like, I'm going to McDonald's. Right. You know, I don't want to eat this. Right. You know, just the familiarity of that, you know. Yeah. You can kind of sense that within your own family, so to speak. And I thought what was really cool was the relationship between Frances McDormand and her husband. You know, her husband's just interested
Hey, Norm. Love you, Norm. Love you, Margie.
Love
you, Margie.
It was just so sweet. like she just went on this whole adventure and everything. She comes back home and they're sitting up in bed. It's like, I love you.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is just do his duck paintings. Just a normal domestic life.
And he was an artist, which was kind of cool. When I saw the paintbrushes in the beginning sequence, rewatching it recently, I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Norm is an artist.
And I thought that was such a refreshing change of pace, to kind of have, the female be proactive. The wife be proactive in terms of she's the protagonist. And he's kind of stay at home. Yeah. I'm just going to do my thing. I'll be here if you need me, you know. And it didn't seem like he was, being subservient or anything. It's just, I'm just, loving, doting husband. That's all.
Yeah. Definitely felt real affection for them. And that actor who played her husband, we've seen in many, many things. But he was really great playing that very understated kind of a part. I agree with you. A couple of things. I think this movie changed because this is how I discovered Frances McDormand.
Okay.
And that's why when I went back to attempt to watch Blood Simple, I was like, wow, she was a really beautiful, starletish, young woman. But, when I discovered her, she's playing like a, late 30s to 40-year-old pregnant woman, 5 or 6 months pregnant. She's got this crazy wig on and she's rocking this crazy Midwestern accent. So, I didn't get any of that. And, and the things she's played after that have, she totally used her powers, to try to go after other roles and to do other things, after this. But like you said, the whole idea that she's the main character, even though she only shows up 30 or 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Like the movie's only 98 minutes long. She didn't show up for almost 25 or 30 minutes in.
It's only that short? Like it's
98 minutes. 98 minutes.
You know what I think? I think it's also the score that made it feel a bit, I hate to say epic, it's overused, but it did make it feel much more grandiose.
Right. Yeah, and they shot it with lots of wide vistas, with white and all of that. William H. Macy said that this movie changed his life.
Oh, yeah.
He pursued the Coen brothers to get the role. He read for one of the secondary sheriff deputies, and they said, "Well, do you want to read for the main character?" And he said, "Sure." And he went home, went out in the hallway and worked on it. Came back. And, "Oh, that's good. That's good." And then they said, "You want to come back tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah." He went home, worked on it all night. "Yeah, that's good." And then he flew to New York because he said he knew that they were also casting people there. So he, on his own dime, flew to New York City, and then they showed up out of nowhere and got the part, and it changed his life.
Oh yeah, because you that's all you saw thereafter.
Yeah.
He was in everything.
Yeah. And anyway, he said he says people walk up to him all the time and want him to talk in that accent. And and it's funny. And she Frances McDormand says it happens to her too, and she says she tells people, "I have to have the wig and the pregnancy thing on, and it's a whole thing for me to do it. I can't just do it." But
So where are you girls from?
Chaska, Le Sueur, but I went to high school in White Bear Lake. Go Bears.
Okay. I want you to tell me what these fellas look like.
Well, the little guy, he was kind of funny looking.
In what way?
I don't know, just funny looking.
Can you be any more specific?
I couldn't really say. He wasn't circumcised.
Was he funny looking apart from that?
Yeah.
So, you were having sex with a little fella then?
Uh-huh.
Is there anything else you can tell me about him?
No. Like I say, he was funny looking. More than most people, even.
Another one that I really dig in the 90s is, and we talked about this one, and this was one that we were in total agreement, was A Simple Plan.
Mm-hmm.
Which came out in 1998, starring Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton. And again, a bunch of great character actors, also Bridget Fonda playing Bill Paxton's wife. But what do you remember about this movie? Like, when you first saw it, what do you remember drawing you in?
As with a lot of movies at the age, it was one that my dad rented.
Okay, Pops,
he brought
all right.
It home, yeah. He brought it home, and it was one of those things. It was like, I don't think he cracked the case open on it. I guess it was recommended to him at the store. So when he brought it home, I was like, well, I'll watch it. I was game to watch anything at that age.
Yeah.
And so when I saw it, I was like, man, this is really good. This is very, very good. And I remember telling you, this was actually one of the first times that visual, nonverbal storytelling hit me.
Yeah,
as far as describing
we talked about
character.
that. Yeah.
Like in the movie, Bill Paxton's character, the brother, he's very responsible. He's fiscal even. And the movie tells you this in multiple ways, but the thing that stuck out to me was he's eating leftover spaghetti, right? You know what I'm saying? And some is dropped on the counter, as, you know, would happen anywhere. You know what I'm saying? But as he's talking, he holds the bowl and he scoops the leftover spaghetti that's dropped on the counter, you know, back into the bowl, you know, and, you know, kind of licks his fingers and whatnot. And that told me right there, okay, he's responsible.
He's been raised not to waste.
Yeah. So when the movie goes on, we're going to see his reaction to them coming upon this money. Whereas with Billy Bob Thornton, he's the black sheep almost, or he feels he's the black sheep.
Right.
You know, so when he comes across the money, he's like, oh man, we got this money now. Now we can do this. But he's like, Paxton is like, we need to be responsible. And so you had that clash there. There's that family drama that goes on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I know better than you.
He's like, no, you don't. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah. And there was actually a third character who finds the money with them, who is actually his brother, Billy Bob Thornton's character's friend. And they're both kind of like knuckleheads and a bit of fuck ups, really. And so Paxton says, hey, you know, they find this plane in the snow out in the remote area where they are.
Yeah.
And they find a dead body in there, and then they find this case with the money in it. And it's like, they counted, and it's like $4 million. And he says, look, somebody's going to come looking for this money. We got to keep it until at least the spring. If nobody shows up asking for it, then we'll go ahead and divvy it up. And then we got to leave town. Like, we can't be riding around here in Jaguars and Cadillacs and shit in fucking Podunk, you know, wherever they are. You know, it's like, that can't happen. And slowly but surely, you start to see the unraveling of these characters and the pressures of not having and knowing that this money is there.
And somebody does come.
And somebody does show up, which a great performance by Gary Cole, playing this, you know, supposed FBI agent who visits the town and makes friends with the sheriff and is trying to investigate this plane that goes down because he knows where it fell. And then, and the whole time, Bill Paxton's wife, Bridget Fonda, who is coming unraveled herself by this money, like she slowly but surely becomes his accomplice in every way. Yeah. You know, telling him, you need to do this. You need to do that. This is what you need to do so we can get this money. You know, and then she has that conversation with him in close to the third act where she says, look, you know, how long are you going to work for Mr. So-and-so and hope that either he retires or dies so that you can take over his business? You know, you can't get a raise from him. You know, this is the only industry in this town that you could work in. You got a college education. You know, I work at the library putting up books. You know, that's what I do. Don't you want your kids to not have hand-me-downs? Don't you want your daughter to be able to go to college and do like you did? So she starts putting that pressure on.
Right.
And everybody's ethics and everybody's morality just starts to just come apart. And they haven't spent a dollar. It's not like in Goodfellas where he says, don't spend any money, and then
everybody coming in with
and then dude comes up with a Cadillac. You know, hey, it was on sale, you know.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you?
What did I tell you? Don't spend the money, so everybody gotta get got.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, you know, and even as the murders start to happen in A Simple Plan, and then it's just fascinating, and it's just fascinating.
Very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, and even the ending, and we talked about the ending where Paxton has to basically shoot his brother Billy Bob Thornton's character's head in the head, and kills him, and only to find out that the money, you know, they had written down most of the serial numbers. You know, if you spend them, they're going to be trackable. Right. They're going to be able to trace it, and it was just awful. But that's a great movie.
Now, didn't Sam Raimi direct that?
I believe so, yeah.
That's where I was like, man, dang.
Yeah, I believe that was Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the emotional themes. Maybe not talk about per se, but just point out, you know, some of the emotional themes. We touched on them a little bit, but, you know, you've got strong community.
Yeah.
Or broken community. Family bonds. Respect. You know. And then like disillusionment and isolation, which we talked about a little bit. And then, of course, like with A Simple Plan, certainly it's just, you know, greed. Yeah. You know, this is quick and easy money. It's in the middle of the woods. How could anybody find us? How could anybody, you know, discover that we have this? And of course they do. Yeah. Jealousy. We do see a little bit of that in A Simple Plan as well between those two brothers. And then revenge, you know, are some of the emotional themes that run through some of these films. But to kind of bring it home and into the 2000s and into modern day, And I have a couple of honorable mentions that I've kind of touched on a little bit here, but No Country for Old Men, in 2007, again directed and written by Ethan and Joel Coen.
Yes, sir.
Tommy Lee Jones, Josh Brolin in his breakout role. This is the one that actually made Josh Brolin a star. Prior to this, he was in Goonies, and and he was in other things like Monster Squad or something like that.
But he wasn't Josh.
He wasn't Josh Brolin. It's after this, I think maybe the next year, American Gangster comes out.
That's right.
And then after that, he's in Men in Black 3, which wasn't a hit, but it was a big movie. And I think this set him up for the seriousness he was with which he was taken as an actor to become Thanos later. In the Marvel movies, and then all the other things.
Wasn't he in a there's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie called Inherent Vice? Wasn't he in that with Joaquin Phoenix? You know what I'm talking about?
But I don't know if he was in that. I didn't see that film, but of course he was later on. He's in Sicario.
Oh yeah.
He plays the FBI guy in Sicario.
Yeah.
And he's actually in Spike Lee's remake of Old Boy.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right.
with Elizabeth Olsen. So Thanos and the Scarlet Witch are bumping uglies in Old Boy. But No Country for Old Men was actually based on a book by Cormac McCarthy, I think is the author's name.
Yeah. And
this is one of the first films, maybe ever, that the Coen brothers didn't write.
It might be.
Yeah, I said it was written and directed by them, but I think they wrote the screenplay, but it was based on an original piece that was, a novel.
Yeah, and don't forget about Javier Bardem.
Oh, yes, Javier Bardem. Anton Chigurh, yes.
Oh,
yes,
man.
Yes. Like weird in that page boy haircut he has. But a great movie, really interesting.
Oh, man, yes.
The second on the call sheet, I don't know if Josh Brolin was above Javier Bardem's name, is killed off screen. Just crazy. And the one thing about this movie, and there were things in the other movies we mentioned that lost me, like in Fargo, the whole thing with her and her high school friend that she met. None of that was necessary. You could have just cleaved that whole section out of the movie, and nothing would have changed about it. But
it added just a little bit of seasoning to it. Like she's out there on the road, she might feel lonely, but she's like,
I guess. And when he tried to sit next to her, she's like, I prefer you sit over there.
Exactly. He showed to stand by her man, like, tell me why not?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And even in No Country for Old Men, I was kind of struck by, okay, you find this money in this case, you're going to leave it in the same case? You don't put it in a backpack or a duffel bag or
can he?
Anything?
Yeah. No.
He took it home with him.
Yeah.
Put it in something else.
But so he was, contemplating like, man, all this money, what can I do?
It's a case.
Yeah, but it's almost a MacGuffin as well, in a certain way. They want it back or whatnot.
Right.
But it's almost like this albatross around his neck, so to speak.
And it has to remain consistent for it to have the weight around his neck that it eventually has, where he's like, fuck, was this even worth it?
Right, exactly. So I get why they made that choice. But yeah, anybody else, I'm going to split this money up.
Yeah.
And maybe he would have found a homing device sooner that was in there. Which led me to also...
Set in the 80s, by the way.
Exactly.
Which is why this old technology, beep, 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 beep.
But it legitimately made, Javier Bardem's character like the Terminator.
Yes.
Like, note for note.
Yes.
Like, when I was watching it for the first time, I was like, and I'm a big Terminator fan, so I was like, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
But it didn't throw me out. I was like, that's a cool homage. All right, okay.
Yeah.
I rock with that.
Yeah. And he couldn't be stopped.
Yes.
Even to the point where they have that shootout at night in the street outside of the rundown hotel.
Great scene. Oh, yeah.
And Javier Bardem's character gets clipped. Mm-hmm. And he goes back to kind of
repair
himself the way Arnold does,
yes.
and then is right back on the. We back in these streets, dog.
It was funny the way that he did it as well, because he did it in the small town way. He made a distraction in front of the drugstore by putting a flaming rag into the gas tank of a car, so that the car would explode. And it's a small town, so everybody's going to come running. Oh my God, what happened? Leaving the pharmacy unattended. And I'll come back here and get what I need.
Right.
So then I can go back to the hotel and repair myself.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he took the brothers, they took those tropes, turned them on the ear just a bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, for the rural sense.
Yeah.
And made it work. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too. But yeah, he, again, not to overuse the word menacing, he was absolutely sinister and menacing and just scary.
Yes.
Just scary. I mean, completely. Spot on casting with Tommy Lee Jones as the aging lawman who's tracking them.
Yeah.
You know, you have Josh Brolin in the front, you have Javier Bardem kind of in the middle, and then you have the Tommy Lee Jones character kind of bringing up the end. And Tommy Lee Jones is actually from West Texas and from that part of the country.
Yeah.
So he was like, you know, I'm very comfortable, you know, here, very comfortable shooting here, and, you know, so on and so forth. And actually, the actor who plays Josh Brolin's wife, Llewellyn Moss's wife, is Scottish.
What?
Scottish.
Really?
Like Scottish is all get out.
I would have never known.
She's from Glasgow.
What?
Yes, but, you know, they said, you know, it's just one of those one in a million things when they were casting. The Coen brothers said when they were casting, it's like, okay, you know, she's just one of those, you know, Western Europeaners who can affect accents very well.
Damn.
She sound like some West Texas trailer living, whatever. Every person I've ever met who looked like that,
Yep.
and sounded like that, that's what she brought.
Damn.
Yeah, she was really great. I do want to jump ahead a little bit to Hell and High Water, and I know you said you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But it is very much like a twin to No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
Because you have these two brothers, Chris Pine and Ben Foster, and essentially their mothers died, and there's a second mortgage on her farm, and the bank's going to take it for like $60,000 or something. And they discover that there's oil on the property. So they say, well, the only way we can raise this money fast, his brother just got out of jail, has been in jail for 10 years, is to rob banks. So they go on a spree robbing banks. And it's all in West Texas, and they have somewhat of a plan. Chris Pine's character is smarter than his brother is. He says, we need to rob only, banks in very, very small towns with small police departments or no police department. And we're not going to take any of the big bills or the ones that are traceable or with die packs. They only took like 20s and 10s and 5s and all that. So they're only really getting $5 to $10,000 at a time. So they've got to rob like six banks in order to do it. And so anyway, eventually in the course of the movie, Jeff Bridges' character is a sheriff or is a marshal who's tracking him with his partner Alberto. And he's figuring out what it is. And Jeff Bridges' character is on his way to being retired. He's going to retire after this case.
Yeah.
So, there's this personal thing going on where he's seeing the end of his career. He's dedicated his life to being a lawman, and he has no friends. He has no children. He has no spouse. Alberto, his partner, is really his only friend. And, of course, Alberto is killed at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But, they have conversations or whatever, and he's kind of an asshole, and there's funny things that happen, and all the key elements we talked about, small town and the personalities. There's a crazy exchange with this waitress in the diner. You have to see it for that. She comes to the table. She says, all right, you gentlemen, what don't you want?
So, what's the plan? We're gonna watch that bank like a deer feeder. In time, we'll be right. Now, let's see what they got to eat here. Howdy, ma'am. How you doing today?
Hot, and I don't mean the good kind. So what don't you want?
Pardon?
What don't you want?
Oh, well, I think I'll just,
I've been working here for 44 years. Ain't nobody ever ordered nothing but T-bone steak and a baked potato. Except this one asshole from New York tried to order trout back in 1987. We don't sell no goddamn trout. T-bone steaks. So either you don't want the corn on the cob, or you don't want the green beans. So what don't you want?
I don't want green beans.
I don't want green beans either.
Steaks cooked medium rare.
Can I get my steak cooked just
That wasn't no question.
All right.
So, these characters and, just all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just all right there. But excellent performances. Written by Taylor Sheridan, directed by David Mackenzie. Super worth it. Just a great, great movie. And falls right in line with this. Another one is The Lookout in 2007 I mentioned to you with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah. And in fact, I was at the mall the other day because I said, I know a place where I can get a cheap copy of that.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about it. I blanked out when I was looking at the whole rack of movies. Like, there's something I'm supposed to get. Fucking all right.
Okay, all right. I would like to have a copy of that myself because it's not very readily available on streaming.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Scott Frank, who is the screenwriting GOAT. One of the modern day GOATs. He wrote Get Shorty.
Oh damn.
He wrote Out of Sight.
Oh damn.
He's written a bunch of stuff, and he's very revered as one of the greats.
Wow.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the tropes. I don't know if you gave any thought to them. I love tropes because tropes are not bad inherently. I mean, there's not that much difference between key elements and tropes per se.
Yeah.
But it's just when they get used over and over again and they become written even poorer than the first or third or fifth time you've seen them, you're like, okay, we know who this character is. They become archetypes, these kind of simple, poorly done archetypes. But we touched on earlier, the family member who's a fuck up.
Yes.
They're gonna die. We knew Billy Bob Thornton was gonna die the minute he showed up with the masking tape on his glasses, and the skull cap and the crazy wig on. We knew he was gonna die.
Exactly.
The local law person, could be male or female, doesn't matter, who is either clueless or way better than this town deserves. Like, you need to be working for the CIA or some shit,
yes,
dog.
like just preternaturally know what is going on.
Yes, to the point where you're like, gee whiz, okay. Why are you working in this podunk town?
Yeah.
The robbery that goes sideways and somebody gets killed. That happens all the time. That happened in A Simple Plan. It happens in all of them.
Yes.
Essentially, something's going to happen. In Hell or High Water, they rob all these banks and nothing happens to anybody. And then his brother, who's not smart, but who is really the muscle, he says, hey, let's go rob this bank here. And he's like, oh, it's too big. It's too populated, blah, blah, blah. Town's too big. It's grown. And they go in and there's 24 people in there. And of course, this is in Texas. Guy got his gun in the waist. And and he pulls, and then they start. It's a shootout, and then Ben Foster's character runs up over the counter and bam, blows his brains out. And then at that point, Ben Foster's character is not going to see the end of the movie.
Right.
It's not going to happen. I mean, it was foretold earlier. He's not going to see the end of the movie. And but that's definitely one. This is one that's always funny to me. You thought it was this much money, but it was that much money. And it could be a lot, or it could be way less than you thought it was. Like they break into the safe. And then they find out there's nothing in here.
Right. This is so many movies. Yeah.
Or you told me it was $60,000. This is $600,000. That kind of shit. It's never what you think it is. But this is another one too. It's always funny to me. Someone gets shot. Let me look at it. Oh, the bullet went right through. You're going to be okay. Just put pressure on it. Yeah, exactly. Nobody's clavicle gets broken and carotid artery. Nobody gets shot in the neck and blood goes squirting and they just, bleed out. You get shot in the shoulder and it's a flesh wound, or you get shot in the gut and the bullet passes right through and it didn't hit anything you need. What are you, Marcus Welby or fucking ER doctor here?
Trapper Judd.
Damn, yo. And then, of course, the trope of the richest person in town is, of course, secretly the most ruthless and corrupt. That's the bad person.
If we gonna start in on the honorable mentions, I got two, man. And
okay. Well, save them for the honorable mentions category. We'll do it. We'll actually discuss them at the end.
Okay, because that trope you just brought up reminds me of Boy.
Yeah,
go ahead.
There's definitely that. And then, we mentioned earlier the tracker who has to help somebody against their will.
Yeah.
But this made me think, I just want to forget to bring this up. One of my favorite tropes in movies, and I love it every time it happens.
What's that?
And I saw it. So what happened the other night, quick tangent, Set It Off was on.
Okay, all right.
So it was the last 20 minutes of the movie. So I was like, I got to watch the last 20 minutes to Set It Off. Yo, they did a damn thing in this.
Yeah.
And the point where Stoney's character, Jada Pinkett's character, calls Blair Underwood, who's at the bank. She calls him on the phone, and she's on the run. All of her homies have been killed. She's on the run in Mexico, and she calls him from a payphone, and she doesn't say anything. And he's, hello? Hello? And it's just silence. One of my favorite tropes is when somebody calls somebody and doesn't say anything, but you just know is this you, so-and-so? You know what I'm saying? It could be anybody. It could be anybody. But it happens in bunches of other movies where it's just like, I hope you're okay. Blah, blah, they have that. It's not a dialogue because the other person's not talking because, the FBI, whatever, might still be.
But they're on the other end, like tearfully crying.
Yes. I love it when that happens in movies. It may have only happened 3 times that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I love it when stuff like that happens. But to round out as far as the real crime movies in recent history is we mentioned Hell or High Water, talked about that in Lookout, and I wanted to mention Wind River, which is a great film. Again, it's Taylor Sheridan, the guy who wrote Sicario and wrote Hell or High Water, and this is his directorial debut. Great movie set on Native American reservation in Wyoming. It's about violence towards women, but it's also about like family and fatherhood and parenthood, and all this kind of stuff. Great performances, great bunch of actors, super tight script. Much more of a meditation than like Hell or High Water or No Country for Old Men or something like that. But a great movie, definitely worth checking out if anybody gets a chance to see it. Okay. But as far as honorable mentions go, I've got 2. I mentioned the other 2, Those Who Wish Me Dead and I Don't Feel at Home in This World. You gonna laugh, yo.
All right, bring it. What's up?
Hard Rain. See, I knew
what?
I knew you were gonna laugh, yo.
I'll allow that. Okay, I'll allow that.
It's a fun, dumb, just not even dumb. It's just a fun popcorn movie set in some small town, and it's raining everywhere, and everybody's swimming in these vats.
Right.
These vat sets and vats of water. You've got Christian Slater doing his best Jack Nicholson yet again.
Yes.
You got Morgan Freeman. You've got Dennis Quaid? Randy Quaid.
Randy
Quaid. You've got Ed Asner.
Damn.
Ed Asner's in it. Betty White is in it.
What?
Yes, it's got a bunch of great actors and performances. And I was like, holy crap, I forgot about this. And it's, they robbed the armored car and it's raining and, and Morgan Freeman and his henchmen are trying to, and Christian Slater. It's essentially the same movie as Broken Arrow.
Yeah.
Christian Slater's trying to stop the bad guys from getting the thing that they want.
Yes.
It's the same plot. But it's a good late 90s thriller set in a small town with an excellent cast. But I mean, it's just not a fantastic movie. It's just, it's fine. If it were on a Saturday while you were folding clothes, it's fine. If you want to throw it in to keep you company. The second one is better than that. It's called The Gift. Came out in 2000. Cate Blanchett, Katie Holmes, Greg Kinnear, Keanu Reeves. The script was written by Billy Bob Thornton. And Cate Blanchett is doing a spot-on accent of Florida white trash.
Wow.
Spot on.
Wow.
I mean, she is not missing a beat. And it was actually, Billy Bob Thornton wrote the screenplay. It was actually about one of his aunts. It's about a woman who's like a clairvoyant or a card reader or whatever in town. She has that reputation. She can kind of see the future and all this kind of stuff. And it was about one of his aunts who supposedly had this gift. Mm-hmm. And there's a murder. Katie Holmes' character is murdered, and they're trying to find who did it and so forth. And it's not a great movie, but it's set in a small Florida community town, with these characters and, small town law enforcement and so on and so forth. But interesting enough, if you get a chance to watch it, if not only just for Cate Blanchett's performance as the main character. You said you had a couple?
Yeah, I did, man.
Okay.
The whole trope you were talking about, like the richest man in town. I actually thought about Roadhouse.
Oh, yes.
You got to.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Where we literally have a shootout in his really tackily, decorated mansion.
Yes. But it's the same thing, this big city guy comes to this small town, to be the head of security at this supposedly rough bar, one of the roughest bars.
Roughest, yo.
Just, you can't tackle this, Dalton. You can't handle this. Oh yeah, watch me. You know what I'm saying? And just the same thing, you get a familiarity with the cast of characters that are there. Mm-hmm. There's a close knitness to it. He has his love interest, and then you have Then you have, the rich guy who runs everything in the town. Played by Ben Gazzara. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that was Ben Gazzara. I forgot about that.
Exactly. So it's like if
who was the older brother? Was it Scott Glenn? Not Scott Glenn. Mr. Mustache.
Sam Elliott. That was his mentor.
Yeah.
It would be like if Patrick Swayze was the grasshopper in Kung Fu, and Sam Elliott was the mentor.
He's Luke Skywalker and he's Obi-Wan.
Exactly. He had to die. Obi-Wan had to die.
Of course. Yeah.
Exactly. So then that's when Patrick Swayze drives that Mercedes up onto the ranch of the rich guy and handles business. But Roadhouse, honorable mention for real crime.
Yeah.
My other one is actually a movie that very few people probably have heard of. It's called Fast Walking from 1982, and it stars James Woods. Robert Hooks is in it, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's one other. and there's a great performance by this actor. I've only seen him one time in this. His name was Timothy. His name was Timothy McIntyre.
Okay.
Timothy McIntyre. Mm-hmm. And his claim to fame before this, believe it or not, was he was a country singer somewhat, but he was also the voice of the dog in the movie A Boy and His Dog.
Oh, snap. I remember he has a very distinct I remember that. Yes.
Like very distinct timbre.
Yeah.
Yes. And he brings it to bear in this movie. Timothy McIntyre is great.
Okay.
He's the third, banana, so to speak. He's one of the prisoners. Mm-hmm. This takes place in a prison in Montana. And James Woods, the reason why I qualify this as a real crime movie is that James Woods works as a correctional officer at this Montana prison, but when he's not there at the prison, he's doing other hustles outside of that in the town.
Gotcha.
He has a prostitution racket. He slings drugs. He brings drugs in for Timothy McIntyre's character, Wasco, who's actually a bigwig inside of the prison. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And they're cousins. It's just a really good jewel of a movie.
Okay.
If you catch it. I caught it on TCM like 2 or 3 years ago. And it was so good, I watched it twice. Like I watched it the first time, and it came on like 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why I was up, but I'm glad I watched it.
Okay.
And then I watched it again like a couple of days later. And I was like, man, this is so good. This is great.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Fast Walking?
Yes, Fast Walking. And it also, when it premiered in theaters, it was called The Joint. And I don't know. But generally it's known as Fast Walking because James Woods' character is called in the film Fast Walking. Like he always has a hustle. He always has something going.
Gotcha.
He's fast walking.
Gotcha.
But it's good. It's a good early James Woods movie.
Okay. Robert Hooks, father of Kevin Hooks from The White Shadow and later on director of
Passion 57.
Yeah. Definitely. I guess to close it out, man, and obviously, one of the things about real crime movies is they're set in these remote places in these, in the woods and in the snowy mountains or in, small towns, these kind of tucked away places, where there's the patina of safety and comfort and familiarity. And then, all this other stuff happens. And I think to some extent, they're an excellent place to show us, to tell stories about our frailty as humans and how we treat one another and what we really want out of life. I think that's what kind of runs through a lot of these films per se. But I did want to ask, of course, about, the quintessential real crime movie that you would recommend to a first-time viewer, for somebody that would touch on some of these elements, maybe have some of the tropes too, but it's just a good darn yarn, set in one of these places.
Damn. Even though I just saw it recently, I've got to go with At Close Range, man.
Okay, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just because it has all the elements there. There is the authenticity. You get the sense of small town values, but also the sense of a familiarity with the characters. Mm-hmm. You know somebody like Brad Jr. Mm-hmm. You probably know somebody like Brad Sr. Mm-hmm. Somebody like, everybody would tell you, don't go out with Brad Sr. He is none but trouble. And the people that hang out with him too, don't hang out with them either. That type of thing.
Yeah.
And the friends that hang out with Brad Jr., you have the fuck up. You have the kid who's overly excited.
The weird, overly excited kid. You have the younger brother who looks up to the older brother and he's going to do anything he's going to do.
Exactly.
Whatever you're doing, I want to do it.
Yeah, I want to follow along too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those type of things. And you the love interest of like, oh man, that kind of, you know, like Slick Rick, a teenage love.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the actor who played his girlfriend, Terry, it was immediately like one of those things, okay, this is the girl you fall in love with. This is the girl who's gonna like, well, he's just like, okay,
yeah.
He's just head over heels.
He's
like
smitten with her.
Yeah, from the very beginning, and she just had a sweetness to her that it was just undeniable. I love that movie. I've always loved that movie. I've got like my Sean Penn, and I mentioned it already here. It's Bad Boys, and it's At Close Range, and then it's State of Grace. That's my Sean Penn trilogy.
Yeah,
somebody said, what's the three-headed monster that you can get on some Sean Penn? That's what I would give them. And he's done some other great things after that, but those were the three where I was just like, wow, I am a fan of this guy.
Yeah.
For sure. So I would definitely say that. I would probably say A Simple Plan for me.
Okay.
Even though I had a really good time rewatching Fargo recently.
Yeah.
But I think A Simple Plan, had the kind of resentment between the two brothers, the one who got everything and the one who didn't. It was a small town where you felt like, they don't have anything going on at this place. And it did seem reasonable that, like, if we just hang on to this money, and for anybody who ever finds a big bunch of money anywhere, just don't spend it for like 6 months at least. If somebody's coming for it, here's every dollar.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just give it back. But, that seemed like a reasonable plan. But of course, it's just not going to go that way. These dudes are not built for reason. They're where they are in life because they haven't been made reasonable decisions. They've not been at all ambitious about their lives, And so I just think, it was just set well. It was cast well. It felt real. It felt like a small town. It felt like something that could happen, a plane going down and, money's never recovered. It felt like, Gary Cole felt like, I'm going to find my damn money. And then the story was so well written because at the end of the film, he's the only one who has the money and he's talking to the FBI and the FBI tells him, we wrote down 80% of the serial numbers. If anybody tries to spend this money, we're going to catch him. And then the last scene of the movie is shot from inside the fireplace where he's trying to burn the money in the fireplace and his wife, Bridget Fonda, is still trying to keep him from doing it. Still trying to find a way to do it. And it's just, you were born in this small town, this area, you're going to stay here.
It is the definition of a Pyrrhic victory. You don't get nothing.
Right.
You got everything, but at the same time, you got nothing.
Right. Right.
Look at what you lost.
Look at what you lost.
Yeah.
They killed people. His brother, he killed his own brother.
Yeah.
So I would definitely highly recommend A Simple Plan, but I'm glad you enjoyed At Close Range because it is one of my favorites, and it really made me a Christopher Walken fan. Even though I was a fan, I think Dead Zone was before that. Mm-hmm. But I was a fan of that, and he actually has a small part in Annie Hall if you ever...
Yes, I've seen that. The crazy brother, they drive...
I just sometimes think about driving off the road into oncoming traffic.
And they're just watching the headlights. And
he's like,
oh no.
Oh, man. But anyway, yeah, small town crime, sometimes called rural noir.
I think that's apropos.
That's a good one. That's a good name for it. A great subgenre for anybody who's not familiar, and we highly recommend. So
yeah.
You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.